France is the nation raising the largest concerns about Europe's lack of competitive LEO constellations and seems to be leading the charge for a sovereign European competitor. France-based Eutelsat is currently the only incumbent European company who has successfully pivoted from geosatellite to LEO constellations. They still maintain geosatellites providing video broadcasting and data services across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. Eutelsat, along with SES, also provide government and critical infrastructure connectivity, with Eutelsat notably maintaining its satellite TV service for Ukrainian civilians throughout the conflict. Eutelsat acquired OneWeb to create Europe's main private contender in the low-orbit satellite broadband race, currently dominated by American Starlink from SpaceX. Eutelsat OneWeb was created by a merger of France-based Eutelsat and UK-based OneWeb in 2023. Eutelsat was mainly a geo provider, whilst OneWeb was building a LEO system. OneWeb was established in 2012 as a global satellite communications company focused on delivering high-speed, low-latency broadband internet to underserved regions, enterprises, and governments. But unlike consumer-centric competitors like Starlink, OneWeb prioritized institutional market segments like aviation, marine operations, disaster response, and rural connectivity. Its key clients include telecom operators expanding rural access, aerospace giants like Airbus, and governments investing in digital infrastructure to connect remote areas. However, this constellation is hampered by structural weaknesses, financial instability, operational delays, and unsustainable cost dynamics that threaten to ground its ambitions. Unlike Starlink's low Earth services targeting the mass market, Eutelsat OneWeb uses satellites in polar orbits to serve enterprise and government markets. Their use of synchronized orbital planes 1,200 kilometers above Earth's surface hurts the performance of OneWeb constellation by increasing the latency of the connection, thus limiting the types of services OneWeb can provide. The company faced significant financial hurdles, filing for bankruptcy in 2020 due to funding issues worsened by the COVID pandemic. However, a consortium led by UK's government and Bharti Global, an Indian telecommunications operator, acquired OneWeb later that year, enabling it to complete its first-generation satellite constellation. The UK government's stake positioned OneWeb as a sovereign asset, but its merger with Eutelsat in 2023 made the company a Franco-Anglo-European company with global reach. OneWeb's satellite, developed in partnership with Airbus, operates using Ku-band spectrum for user links and Ka-band for gateway connections to ground stations, delivering speeds of up to 500 megabits per second per terminal. A notable limitation is their lack of laser inter-satellite connects, forcing reliance on a global network of 40-plus ground gateways to route data. This architecture necessitates robust international infrastructure, particularly in remote or oceanic regions, and is very expensive to run and maintain. Development is currently focused on second-generation satellites, which will introduce critical upgrades like laser inter-satellite links and enhanced throughput to significantly boost network's performance and resilience. The introduction of inter-satellite laser will eventually bring the OneWeb download speeds performance closer to modern LEO constellations, but it will still be significantly behind on latency due to its satellites placed in 1,200 km orbits, while its competitors are closer to 600 km orbits. Eutelsat is trying to intelligently integrate the OneWeb LEO constellation with its existing geostationary satellites, optimizing coverage and advancing on non-terrestrial networks and direct-to-device availability. OneWeb has established itself in the satellite connectivity market with a distinct high-value approach that contrasts sharply with the mass market model of competitors like Starlink. Operating on a wholesale model through partners like Connecticut Satellite Solutions, its services are priced for enterprise users, typically starting above $1,000 per month, which inherently limits mass consumer adoption. This strategy involves partnering with major telcos like AT&T and BT, but in doing so, OneWeb cedes direct consumer relationships and brand control to these partners, who can also further mark up prices, potentially affecting competitiveness. The company's focus is on premium connectivity applications where reliability and coverage are paramount. Key target markets include in-flight broadband via partners like Intelsat and Satixfy, maritime connectivity, and secure government communications, evidenced by significant contracts with entities like French and UK armed forces. To extend its reach into emerging markets, OneWeb also partners with telecom providers like Bharti Airtel of India to provide 5G network backhaul in remote regions of Africa and India. Eutelsat had been pivoting towards connectivity for a decade as its core video broadcasting business stagnated in the face of streaming services. The acquisition of OneWeb was a decisive move to accelerate this shift and build a combined GEO and LEO powerhouse to compete with Starlink's growing dominance. Today, the merged entity operates a hybrid fleet of 35 geostationary satellites for broadcast and broadband alongside OneWeb's 648 first-generation LEO satellites, positioning it uniquely to offer integrated global coverage. Eutelsat at the moment has the biggest European LEO constellation with more than 648 satellites, making it Europe's largest operator of low Earth orbit satellites and an obvious candidate as the European champion. The constellation will face significant competitive pressure, particularly from Amazon's Project Kuiper and the Chinese Guowang and Qianfang globally. The OneWeb satellites operate in a polar orbit at an altitude of approximately 1,200 kilometers, distributed across 12 orbital planes. This high altitude, compared to Starlink's 550-kilometer orbit, provides each satellite with a broader coverage footprint, which is more efficient for serving large remote areas. The network delivers speeds of up to 195 megabits per second downloads with latency of under 70 milliseconds using Ku-band frequencies. Its polar inclination is a key feature, ensuring reliable connectivity over the most remote regions of the Earth, including the Arctic, Antarctic, and major global aviation and maritime routes. Eutelsat's roadmap involves substantial investment to maintain and expand this constellation. The company expects to spend up to $2.5 billion to deploy an additional 440 LEO satellites, which are needed to sustain and enhance the OneWeb constellation. In 2024, Elon Musk called his Starlink system the backbone of the Ukrainian army because of its wide use defending against Russia's invasion, and warned that their entire front line will collapse if he turned it off, sending the Europeans scrambling for alternatives. In 2025, when the French government became the biggest shareholder in the Eutelsat OneWeb satellite company, a choice was made to avoid dependence on other powers. The French Financial Ministry said their $1.5 billion investment will help the satellite company compete with Elon Musk's Starlink. The investment was to fund a renewal of Eutelsat's satellite fleet and improve its financial situation, including through a debt restructuring. The French government also awarded Eutelsat a 10-year, $1 billion deal at the Paris Air Show to provide military communications for the French armed forces. Eutelsat faces the costly challenge of launching its satellites, which directly impacts its competitiveness. The company relies on expensive third-party rockets like the Ariane 6 and the Soyuz 2, with launch costs around $60 million per mission. This stands in stark contrast to competitor SpaceX, which uses its own reusable Falcon 9 rockets for approximately $15 million per launch, a four-fold cost disadvantage that cascades into higher expense for every bit of data its network delivers. This launch problem has been exacerbated by geopolitical shifts. Eutelsat's initial deployment relied heavily on Russian Soyuz 2 rockets, but the invasion of Ukraine in 2022 severed this partnership. This forced an urgent and ironic shift to relying on its chief competitor SpaceX, as well as India's ISRO TSLV Mark III, to continue building its constellation. This structural cost disadvantage casts a shadow over Eutelsat's prospects, especially with the imminent arrival of Amazon's LEO, which also targets the enterprise market. Eutelsat's path to improving its competitiveness appears constrained until Europe can develop and operationalize its own cheap, reusable launch rockets to drastically reduce the cost of accessing space. Another smaller satellite broadband competitor is Luxembourg-based SES with its O3b mPOWER constellation. The O3b mPOWER is a second-generation medium orbit constellation developed by SES. The system is designed to deliver high-throughput connectivity for industries including telecommunications, marine operations, government, and energy. Building on the success of SES's original O3b system, operational since 2014, mPOWER orbits at 8,000 kilometers altitude, covering 96% of the global population between latitudes 50 degrees north and 50 degrees south. SES SA is a leading global satellite operator known for pioneering the multi-orbit strategy. The company, founded in 1985, has grown into one of the world's largest satellite communications providers, serving broadcasters, telecom operators, government, and enterprises worldwide. It operates dozens of GEO satellites, including its famous Astra satellite for TV broadcasting across Europe. Following its merger with Intelsat in July 2025, the combined company now operates a fleet of over 120 satellites. Each 1,700 kilogram satellite, constructed by Boeing, incorporates an all-electric propulsion system and software-defined antennas capable of dynamically shaping and steering 5,000 sports beams per satellite. These beams can be reconfigured in real time, allowing precise bandwidth allocation ranging from 50 megabits per second to 100 gigabits per second per terminal. With latency as low as 150 milliseconds, mPOWER outperforms traditional geostationary systems by force behind the 50 millisecond latencies of LEO constellations like Starlink. Since its inception, O3b mPOWER has achieved significant milestones. The first two satellites were launched in December 2022, followed by an additional pair in April and November 2023. As of April 2024, 6 satellites were operational, with 2 more launched in December 2024 and 5 additionally planned for 2026, making a total of about 13 satellites. However, the program has faced setbacks. Early satellites experienced electrical issues that reduced their lifespan and capacity, but subsequent units were redesigned and 2 extra satellites were added to compensate for the reduced performance of the initial batch. Launches rely on SpaceX Falcon 9 rockets with their ground stations integrated with Microsoft Azure data centers through a partnership with Microsoft, enabling cloud access for real-time analytics and edge computing. For market access, they have partnerships with telecom giants like Vodafone of the UK, Orange of France, and Geo Platforms of India to use their satellites for 5G backhaul to serve mobile in remote areas like in the Cook Islands and in Senegal. In the maritime sector, clients like Virgin Voyages and MSC Cruises utilize mPOWER for high-speed onboard internet for passenger connectivity. By focusing on enterprise, government, and mobility sectors, the company offers a resilient, adaptable solution in an increasingly interconnected world. By 2026, the completed constellation aims to deliver over 10 terabytes of capacity, targeting underserved markets in Asia, Africa, and the Arctic.